What you were taught about power is a lie, and it was carefully constructed so that you would never become dangerous. From an early age, you heard that the right thing to do is to please, to give in, to always be good. But Machiavelli knew something few dare say. Those who believe too much in ideals end up being devoured by those who understand reality. The world doesn't reward the innocent, it rewards strategists. And here's the shock. It's not those who speak the loudest, who appear the strongest, or who collect diplomas who earn respect. It's those who learn to play in silence, observing, calculating, pulling the invisible strings. Thinking like Machiavelli is dangerous because it shatters all illusions. You discover that being loved is good, but being respected is essential, that constantly showing strength is weakness, and that the true weapon lies in appearing harmless while wielding real power. This brutal and simple logic changes the way you approach everything. Your negotiations, your relationships, even the way you speak or remain silent. And the reward is immediate. You stop being manipulated and start manipulating the game. If you're tired of being underestimated, ignored, or used, here's a warning. This video is not for the faint of heart. It's for those ready to let go of their naivete and see life as it truly is. Raw, hard, but full of opportunities for those with discipline, coolness, and strategic patience. Because power, when properly understood, needs no crowns or titles. It infiltrates conversations, shapes perceptions, and alters destinies. And from now on, you'll discover how to use it to your advantage, transforming the mind into a strategic weapon. Imagine the mind as a silent battlefield where each thought is a chess piece moved with intention. Machiavelli would understand this scenario perfectly because he knew that an undisciplined mind becomes a slave to circumstances. To transform the mind into a strategic weapon, it's not enough to think on a grand scale. It's necessary to think calculatedly, like someone who sharpens a blade in silence. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires understanding that the world doesn't forgive naivete. It's like entering a negotiation. Those who arrive with only good intentions have already lost before opening their mouth. The strategic mind sees patterns, anticipates moves, and calculates risks without letting it show. And believe me, this can be trained. Just as a soldier practices daily with his sword, someone can exercise their mind by analyzing real-life scenarios, studying political news, observing market movements, reading biographies of leaders. All of this strengthens the mental muscles and makes the mind not just an instrument, but a true weapon. A strategic mind is one that doesn't allow itself to be dominated by momentary impulses, but observes each situation as if it were a slow-motion board game. Machiavelli reminds us that the end justifies the means, and this, in the mental realm, means that it will often be necessary to adopt unpopular thoughts, but ones that lead to the desired result. Think about how successful investors work. While most despair and sell at the bottom, they remain calm, wait, observe, and buy what others have discarded. This is transforming the mind into a weapon. Not reacting like the masses, but deciding like those who have already foreseen the next chapters of history. The discipline of thinking long-term, of questioning one's own beliefs, of seeking information where others don't, creates an armored mind. It's not a gift, it's practice. And when someone achieves this, they become respected, because they are no longer seen as just another member of the crowd. They are seen as someone who carries virtue and fortune on their side. Transforming the mind into a strategic weapon also means not being content with being merely intelligent, but with being effective. How many of us know who are full of brilliant ideas, but incapable of applying them? The strategic mind applies the calculated use of force not through muscle, but through reasoning. It's like a general who doesn't waste soldiers in unnecessary battles, but rather positions his own loyal armies where it truly matters. This applies to everyday life. It's not about arguing in every conflict, but about choosing the battles that shape life. Someone who masters this principle doesn't shout, doesn't get excited. They observe, and when they act, no one forgets. This mind doesn't need to prove anything, because it knows that power lies in precision, not in haste. It's the same logic that guides great leaders, entrepreneurs, or strategists. They are remembered not for what they constantly say, but for the impact of the few moves they make. And this, as we will see, is what connects directly to the next step, using Machiavelli's teachings as a practical guide. Using Machiavelli's teachings as a practical guide, Machiavelli didn't write to be admired, but to be useful. His teachings aren't political poetry. They're sharp tools for those who wish to survive and thrive in a world that rarely plays fair. When he said that it's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both, he wasn't advocating wanton cruelty, but revealing a principle of politics guided by reality, not ideals. People respect those who set limits more than those who bend over backward to please. Applying this to everyday life doesn't mean becoming a tyrant, but learning to set clear boundaries. At work, for example, there's no point in always being the nice guy who accepts every demand. You need to know how to say no firmly and respectfully so that your value is recognized. This is the kind of lesson that, when incorporated, transforms how one positions oneself in any area of life. Another essential point of Machiavelli's is the concept of virtù and fortuna. Virtù is not a moral virtue, but the practical ability to act with courage, constant adaptability, and intelligence when faced with opportunities. Fortune is chance, that which we cannot control. Together, they form the basis of strategy. There's no point complaining about luck. You must be prepared to seize it when it arises. Imagine someone who spends years studying a field. When the opportunity for a promotion or to start a business arises, they already have the necessary knowledge to seize it. This is virtù in action. And Machiavelli is incisive in reminding us, those who don't prepare when fortune favors them lack the strength to move. This practical guide isn't learned in the classroom, but in everyday life, observing, analyzing, making mistakes, and correcting. And only those who adopt this mindset can move firmly amidst chaos. But perhaps Machiavelli's most applicable teaching is the calculated use of force. He wasn't talking about physical strength, but about the ability to act accurately without wasting energy. Think of a manager who needs to fire a problematic employee. If he gets tangled up, if he appears insecure, he'll lose the team's respect. But if he acts firmly, clearly, and with rational justification, he'll be respected, even if it hurts. This is politics guided by reality, not ideals. It's about not deluding yourself with the idea that everything can be solved with good intentions alone. Applying Machiavelli as a practical guide is like having a secret survival manual in a competitive world. And the key lies precisely in realizing that it's not about always acting, but acting at the right time. This principle leads us to the next step, learning to control emotions through silence and observation. Controlling emotions through silence and observation. There is a silent power that Machiavelli would have applauded. The ability to control one's emotions. In the game of life, whoever despairs first has already lost the game. Silence is not just an absence of speech, it is strategy. By remaining silent, one allows the other to reveal their intentions, expose their impulses, and reveal their weaknesses. It's like in a negotiation. Those who talk too much usually give themselves away, while those who observe patiently gain ground without lifting a finger. This is the practical application of politics guided by reality, not ideals. People don't value those who react hastily, but those who act with precision. Keeping a calm face in an argument, observing gestures, capturing the other person's tone of voice. All this offers more information than any spoken word. Those who master silence master the invisible game of relationships. Silence is a form of calculated force. It gives others the space to believe they're in control, when in fact they're simply revealing themselves. Imagine a leader in a meeting. They could try to impose their vision immediately, but by choosing to listen first, they let each member express their ideas, their insecurities, their ambitions. Thus, when they finally speak, their words carry weight. Machiavelli said that the end justifies the means, and here the means is patience. It's not about repressing feelings, but about channeling them. Anger, for example, can be transformed into energy to act at the right moment, instead of exploding and losing credibility. It's the calculated use of force applied to the emotional realm. And, curiously, this stance generates respect. Those who don't let themselves be carried away by impulses come to be seen as trustworthy, someone capable of commanding their own loyal armies. Observing in silence also allows you to perceive what lies beneath the surface. A fleeting expression on someone's face can reveal more than an entire speech. A watchful eye identifies what many overlook. And here's the point. Controlling emotions doesn't mean being stone cold, but being as selective as a surgeon. It's speaking only when it has impact, acting only when it has consequences. This emotional discipline is the essence of the constant adaptability that Machiavelli preached. Not always reacting in the same way, but adapting to the environment. Those who learn this become impenetrable, almost untouchable, because they cease to be predictable. And when predictability dies, real power is born. This path opens the door to the next step, exploiting others' impulses in a calculated way. Exploiting the impulses of others in a calculated way, Machiavelli knew that true strength lies not only in mastering oneself, but in understanding others. Human impulses are predictable: greed, fear, the need for approval, the desire for status. Those who learn to see these invisible mechanisms can guide decisions without raising their voice. It's the purest application of politics, guided by reality, not ideals. For example, if someone at work is obsessed with recognition, offering strategic praise is enough to direct their behavior. If another fears losing ground, the mere insinuation that they're falling behind sends them racing to prove their worth. Exploiting impulses isn't cruel manipulation, but understanding that everyone has weaknesses that can be exploited to steer situations. The end justifies the means when the goal is to gain an advantage without direct confrontation. This skill requires constant observation and surgical silence. While others get lost in arguments, the strategist pays attention to patterns. Who always seeks acceptance, who always talks too much, who can't stand being contradicted. Machiavelli would call these decisions based on real human nature, because no matter how much people talk about values, ideals, and good intentions, in practice, it's their impulses that guide their choices. It's like a game of poker. The winner isn't the one with the best cards, but the one who understands their opponent's unconscious signals. Similarly, in life, winning isn't about brutally imposing your will, but about calculatingly using what's already within people. It's the calculated use of emotional strength, not your own, but that of others. And this opens doors that would otherwise be locked. Exploring impulses also involves timing. Praise given too early feels like flattery, too late feels like obligation, but at the right time, it becomes a currency of power. The same goes for creating small fears or insecurities. When applied at the right moment, they make others rethink their actions without you having to ask. This is virtu and fortuna applied to the psychological realm. The strategist doesn't need to shout, just pull the right triggers. Think of a leader who, instead of demanding directly, sets a goal that sparks healthy competition among his team. The result? Everyone chases it without the need for him to order it. This is the invisible game of power, letting others move, believing they are acting on their own. And it is precisely in this realm that the next art emerges, appearing harmless while wielding real power. Appear harmless while wielding real power. Few weapons are as lethal as the art of appearing harmless. Machiavelli understood this game like no one else because he knew that the most dangerous power is that which goes unnoticed. While many flaunt, demonstrate strength and proclaim conquests, the true strategist disguises himself as ordinary, almost irrelevant. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that the appearance of virtue is one of the best masks. Appearing just, humble, or even naive opens doors that would never open to arrogance. Consider how certain figures in history went unnoticed until the moment they revealed their strength. Leaders who, because they were so harmless, aroused no suspicion, but when they acted, dismantled the entire board. This is the paradox. Apparent softness is often the armor of real power. In practice, this strategy works in any environment. At work, those who appear less threatening can move among different groups, hear secrets, gain trust, and observe vulnerabilities. No one attacks someone they don't consider dangerous. It's the calculated use of force through invisibility. Remember, the end justifies the means, and often the means is camouflage. Being underestimated is a valuable advantage because it reduces resistance. A simple example: the discreet investor who never flaunts his wealth but silently accumulates assets and influences markets. While others expend energy proving their greatness, he moves like a shadow. And it is in this contrast between appearance and essence that true influence is born, the ability to shape decisions without drawing attention to oneself. The secret lies in understanding that appearing harmless isn't a weakness, but a strategic choice. Machiavelli warned of the importance of avoiding being hated, and nothing protects against hatred more than the image of someone seemingly harmless. It's like a card game. Revealing all one's power immediately attracts enemies, but keeping one's cards hidden confuses and disarms. By acting this way, the strategist creates an invisible maneuvering space where they can advance without resistance. Those who master this art are rarely attacked because everyone believes there's no reason to fear them. But at the right moment, this same harmless figure can turn the tables in their favor. And for this to happen with precision, another essential ingredient comes into play: discipline and the coolness to masterfully manipulate situations. Using discipline and coldness to manipulate situations. Discipline and composure are the pillars that differentiate those who play the game of power from those who are merely pieces on the board. Machiavelli already anticipated this when he advocated decisions based on true human nature. People act driven by emotions, but those who keep a cool head control the board. It's not about being insensitive, but about understanding that the heat of emotions often leads to irreversible mistakes. Think of a heated negotiation. Those who lose their cool give away too much, reveal secrets, or accept unfair conditions. The disciplined strategist, on the other hand, even under pressure, maintains controlled breathing, a firm tone of voice, and waits for the right moment to put the proposal on the table. This posture not only protects, but also silently intimidates, because it shows that there is no way to unbalance them. Discipline in this context is almost military. It's like training your own loyal armies within your mind. Every thought under command, every impulse duly controlled, every decision evaluated before being executed. The calculated use of force, when guided by composure, eliminates waste. It's not necessary to react to every attack, only to those that truly matter. A good example of this is in the financial market. Investors who follow strict discipline without giving in to collective panic are those who reap the greatest rewards in the long run. They know that fortune favors the prepared, not the terrified. This composure is not the absence of emotion, but mastery over it. It's choosing to act only when the move is certain, and not when anxiety demands haste. And here comes strategic manipulation. When someone maintains discipline and composure, they can create scenarios where others lose themselves in their own emotions. It's like a chess player who, without haste, sets traps and watches their opponent fall on their own. This skill connects directly to the Machiavellian principle that the end justifies the means. If it's necessary to lead someone to make a decision that benefits their strategy, they do so without guilt, because they understand that all power is, in essence, the control of behavior. Composure is the key that opens the door to calculated manipulation, observing, waiting, and acting at the right moment. And when this art combines with time management, the next pillar emerges: the value of long-term thinking and strategic patience. Value of long-term thinking and strategic patience. Haste is the greatest enemy of those who desire true power. Machiavelli understood that politics is not won in days, but in decades, and that the greatest victories are reaped by those who plant invisible seeds and wait for the harvest. Long-term thinking is a form of silent power because most only see the immediate. While many are carried away by ideal-driven politics, believing in quick promises and magical solutions, the strategist remains steadfast in a politics guided by reality, which requires patience, calculation, and vision. It's like building a fortress, brick by brick, without haste, but with the certainty that in the future, no one will be able to knock it down. Whoever masters time, masters the game. Strategic patience is, in practice, a daily exercise in discipline. Imagine an investor who resists the temptation to sell stocks in times of crisis because they know that in the future the market will adjust and reward their calm. This is the same principle that drives leaders and negotiators, not to be carried away by the heat of the moment, but to act with the conviction of someone who knows that fortune favors those who wait prepared. The end justifies the means when the means is to bide their time. A compliment, an agreement, a difficult decision, all can be postponed until the moment the move is certain. This patience is not passivity, it is strategy. It is the calculated use of force applied to time, not just to action. Long-term thinking also requires courage to appear like a loser in the short term. It's like a general retreating from battle to win the war. In the eyes of the crowd, it may seem like weakness, but on the chessboard of power, it's simply repositioning. Machiavelli would say that it's better to be feared than loved, but above all, one must avoid being hated, and this can only be achieved through calculated and consistent moves over time. Strategic patience creates an aura of stability and trust, making others feel safe around you, and when everyone believes you are predictable and trustworthy, that's where the next key emerges. The importance of the appearance of virtue and credibility. The importance of the appearance of virtue and credibility. Few things are as powerful as appearing virtuous, even if, on the inside, the strategy is much more complex. Machiavelli said that princes should, above all, cultivate the appearance of virtue, because the masses don't see what's real, only what's shown. This doesn't mean living in hypocrisy, but understanding that perception always matters more than intention. A leader may even make harsh and unpopular decisions behind the scenes, but if he maintains public credibility, he can govern without resistance. It's politics guided by reality, not by ideals. People want to believe in symbols, in figures that seem right. And those who know how to portray themselves as virtù and fortuna gain ground, even when, behind the scenes, they use the end to justify the means to stay afloat. In everyday life, this lesson is even more practical. How many times has someone been overlooked because they lacked credibility, even though they were competent? The reverse is also true. There are those who lack preparation but gain positions simply by appearing trustworthy. It's like in job interviews, a resume isn't enough. You need to convey poise, calm, and confidence. This is the calculated use of force applied to image. Machiavelli would recommend that every strategist be mindful of how they are perceived, because this is what defines the first barriers or doors that open. There's no point in being brilliant if everyone perceives you as arrogant. There's no point in being fair if everyone sees you as indecisive. The appearance of virtue is an invisible uniform, and those who don't wear this uniform always start at a disadvantage. Credibility is the cement that holds any influence together. Once lost, it's difficult to recover. Therefore, the strategist must act like a careful architect, building their image brick by brick with discipline and composure. It's better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, but nothing prevents both from being possible when the appearance of virtue is intact. This is the balance. Appearing trustworthy, but never predictable. Appearing fair, but always leaving room for calculated moves. When someone achieves this aura, even their mistakes seem acceptable, because others have already created a narrative of trust around them. And this is where the next pillar comes in. Making decisions based not on ideals, but on real human nature, which rarely forgives naivete. Making decisions based on real human nature. The greatest failing of many leaders and individuals is to believe that people act driven by lofty ideals, when in fact, as Machiavelli made clear, humanity's true compass is self-interest. Making decisions based on true human nature means abandoning illusion and embracing politics guided by reality, not ideals. This means understanding that loyalty often lasts only until a more advantageous opportunity arises, that friendship, in certain contexts, can be replaced by convenience, and that public morality rarely resists private temptation. A simple example: how many politicians were elected with speeches of virtue, but at the first hurdle gave in to power-grabbing bargains? This behavior is not the exception, it is the rule. And those who fail to see this are always doomed to be surprised. In the personal sphere, the same principle applies. When negotiating, choosing partners, or even friends, relying solely on words is naive. It's important to observe behavioral patterns. If someone lies in small matters, they'll likely lie in larger ones. If someone displays cowardice in the face of minor pressures, they'll hardly maintain courage in real battles. Machiavelli reminds us that it's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both, precisely because fear creates limits that morality alone can't maintain. This view may seem harsh, but it's a calculated use of psychological force, expecting people to act according to their nature, not the ideals they preach. Those who make these decisions reduce errors, anticipate betrayals, and create illusion-proof strategies. Virtue, in this context, lies in knowing how to interpret the human heart without filters. It's recognizing that everyone is driven by a desire for security, recognition, and power, and that these mechanisms are stronger than altruistic rhetoric. When someone makes decisions from this lens, they gain an advantage because they're playing the real game, not the imaginary one. It's like a commander who knows his soldiers will fight more for pay than for patriotism, or a manager who understands that his team is more motivated by the bonus at the end of the month than by motivational slogans. Making decisions based on this clarity isn't cynicism, it's strategic wisdom. And it's precisely this naked look at human nature that leads to the final point: playing the power game subtly and invisibly. Playing the power game subtly and invisibly. True power rarely makes noise. Those who understand this realize that the game is not won with exaggerated displays of force, but with subtle, almost invisible movements. Machiavelli pointed out that governing is often about appearing more than being. The strategist doesn't need to always be the center of attention. On the contrary, they often prefer the shadows. Because in silence, one sees more, listens more, and acts with precision. The power game, when played well, leaves no obvious traces. People believe they made their own decisions when in fact they were led. It is the ultimate application of politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Winning not by what one shows, but by what one influences without anyone noticing. This subtlety demands absolute self-control. It's as if each action were a carefully placed piece on an invisible board. The calculated use of force manifests itself not in bursts of authority, but in light touches that reorient decisions. A practical example: instead of trying to directly convince someone resistant, the strategist plants an idea in a casual conversation and lets it mature over time. When the decision emerges, it seems natural, as if it were the other person's. This is invisible power, the kind that needs no crowns, positions, or titles to exist. The end justifies the means when the means is strategic invisibility. It's a form of virtue that transforms even small interactions into far-reaching movements. Playing this invisible game is also the best way to avoid unnecessary enemies. Machiavelli warned that it is better to be feared than loved, but it is essential to avoid being hated. Invisibility offers this protection. No one attacks what they cannot clearly see. Subtle manipulation arouses no resistance, because the other believes they are always in control. It is like a silent river that, without fanfare, shapes stones over the centuries. Those who learn to master this style never need to show off. The results speak for themselves. And when this art is incorporated, the feeling emerges that the mind has, in fact, become a strategic weapon, capable of moving pieces unseen. But this is only the beginning, because thinking like Machiavelli is understanding that danger and opportunity go hand in hand. And this is precisely what opens the way for a bold introduction that disarms illusions and invites us to see power in a completely new way. You've realized that thinking like Machiavelli isn't about evil, but about lucidity. The world doesn't function based on romantic ideals, but rather on interests, invisible forces, and silent strategies. The question is, will you continue living like a piece on the board, or will you decide to play like someone who understands the rules? How many times have you missed opportunities because you trusted too much? How many times have you been ignored because you wanted to please? And how many times have you noticed that others, less capable than you, have advanced simply because they knew how to appear strong or harmless at the right moment? This is the reality. The power game is happening now. Whether you like it or not, the difference is that some are already using these weapons, while others still believe that being good is enough to win. So, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to let your emotions be manipulated, or will you take control and become a strategist of your own life? If something inside you was awakened today, let me know in the comments. I want to know what changed in your worldview after watching this video. And if you want to continue learning how to play the invisible game of power, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The next step could be the one that completely transforms your way of life.